Hi, we're going to start our lessons in the Mishnah. But before we start the lessons on the actual text of the Mishnah, I'd just like to give you a bit of a background as to what the Mishnah is and what it means to us. In fact, as we record this, it's just a few days before Shavuot. And Shavuot is a festival where we celebrate that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that Hashem, gave us the Torah. What many people do not know is that there are actually two Torahs. The one is what we call the Torah Shebichtav, and that's the written law, that's a written Torah. And that's what many people know as the Chumash, or the Bible, the 5 books of Moses. But the written Torah is not that easy to understand. You see that there's a lot of gaps in our understanding of the written Torah. For instance, let me give you an example. It says, Uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha v'sharecha. That's part of the Shema that we say every day, that you must write it on the doorposts of your house. What is the it, and how do we write it? The Torah Shebichtav, the written Torah, just tells us that vague sentence, but where really we would have no idea what it means. So this is where the oral law, which was the explanation that was handed down together with the written law, comes and informs us that what it means is that you have to write the Shema, and you've got to put it on a piece of parchment, and then that parchment is rolled up and is put on the door, and that's the mitzvah that we know as the mezuzah today. If we would just have the written Torah, we wouldn't really know exactly what it means, and there'd be various interpretations. Maybe some people would scratch it on the door, maybe some people would paint it on the door. But this is where we see how the oral Torah dovetails the written Torah. And Moses got both Torahs on Mount Sinai. He got the written Torah, which was dictated to him by God himself, and then he spent a lot of time on Mount Sinai, and he was being taught the oral Torah as well. And then when Moses came down, without going into the debacle of the golden calf and the breaking of the tablets and the giving of the new tablets, but basically what happened thereafter is that Moses came down, gave the Jewish people the written Torah, and then taught them the oral Torah. And that oral Torah was originally handed down from generation to generation, and as its name implies, it was oral. It was the oral interpretation of the written Torah, and every generation took it upon themselves to safeguard the integrity of the oral Torah. They learnt it, they used it in order to be able to interpret the written Torah, and they handed it down from generation to generation. And it was meant to be, as we said, as its name implies, it was meant to be oral, and it was not even allowed to be written down. However, things didn't work out exactly as we would have liked it to have worked out. And after the Roman occupation and the trials and tribulations and the persecutions that happened to the Jewish people, the oral Torah was being forgotten, was being distorted. Various views started to branch out from the oral Torah, and so it was seen necessary to take the oral Torah and to commit it to writing. And that project was done by a great man by the name of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Rabbi Judah the prince, and he went and he collected all the oral traditions that he could, and he organized that these oral traditions would be written down. And the writing down of those oral traditions is what's known as the Mishnah. Now, the Mishnah is very brief. In fact, if you would try to read the Mishnah, it's sometimes not that easy to understand or to make sense of, because Rabbi Yehuda wanted to keep the oral dimension of the Torah Sheba'al Peh, of the oral law. That even though he wrote it down, it was more like notes. He almost like wrote it down in a code. That it would still be necessary to have an oral tradition in order to be able to explain the Mishnah. And after a while, that also became a little bit complicated, and so that's when we had the Gemara, and that was an explanation of the Mishnah. So the Gemara is an explanation of the Mishnah. The Gemara plus Mishnah, Mishnah plus Gemara, is what is known as the Talmud, and the two of those is the commentary and the understanding of the Torah Shebichtav, of the oral law. There are 6 orders Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, in the Mishnah. When Rabbi Yehuda gathered up all the teachings, he divided them up into six sort of departments. And the first one is known as Zra'im, which deals with all the agricultural laws, except for the first Masechet. The first Masechet of the Mishnah is called Berachot, which is the one that we're going to start to study. And that deals with the laws of, as its name implies, blessings, our prayers, and things relating to the service of God. But the rest of Zra'im deals with the laws relating to agriculture as it applies in the land of Israel. The next section is known as Mo'ed, and that Mo'ed means a festival. That deals with all the festivals, starting with the festival, in a way, of Shabbat. And then we have the laws of Nashim, laws dealing with women, marital laws, personal status laws. Then we have Nazikim, which is damages. And then we have Kochim, which are the laws dealing with the sacrificial service as it pertained in the time of the temple. And then the final Masechet is known as Taharot, which deals with the laws of ritual purity. And so those are the six sections of the Mishnah, and those are known as Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, the 6 orders of the Mishnah. And then each order is divided further into what is known as Masechtot. Masechtot are as translated into English as tractates, and they are the divisions of each order. So, for instance, let's take Nashim, which is the order dealing with the laws of marriage. In Nashim there are various tractates, such as the tractate known as Gittin, which is the laws dealing with divorce. Then you have the tractate known as Kiddushin, which is the laws dealing with marriage. And if you would take, for instance, Mo'ed, the order of Mo'ed, you have in Mo'ed tractate Shabbat, which deals obviously with the laws of Shabbat, tractate Beitza, which deals with the laws of Yom Tov, etc. And so there are over 60 Masechtot in the Mishnah. Not all of the Masechtot in the Mishnah have a Talmud on them, or at least a Talmud Bavli on them. Some of them do, especially for instance in the Seder of Kochim and Taharot, there are some Mishnaiot that have no Talmud. But the majority of the Mishnaiot do have a Talmud, and those are what makes up what is today in the Jewish world known as Shas. Shisha Sidrei Mishnah. You have the 6 orders of the Mishnah, and you have the commentary of that, which is the Gemara. Together it makes up the Talmud, and that is the basis of Jewish learning. Jewish learning today centers around the study of Shas, whether it's in the deeper involvement in the Talmud, in the Gemara, or whether it's in the easier understanding of the Mishnah. But that is what Jews are learning today. And it's all about learning the Torah She'Ba'al Peh, the oral law. And so that is just like a brief introduction into what the Mishnah means. The word Mishnah actually means to learn. There's a verse in the Shema that we say every day. It says, "V'shinantam levanecha v'dibata bam," that you will teach it to your children. And so we see that the word shanan, shana, l'shanot means to teach, means to learn. But it also has a connotation of l'shanot, which means to go over, to review. The Mishnayot should be reviewed, and one should go over them, because the more one understands the Mishnah, the clearer, first of all, the Talmud will be, and the greater understanding will be of the Torah Shebechtav. So that is just a brief understanding, a brief introduction into the Mishnah. Let's start our study of the Mishnah. And as I said, the first tractate that we have in the Mishnah is the tractate known as Berachot. Berachot forms part of Zra'im. Now, I said that the majority of Zra'im deals with the laws relating to agriculture. There were many laws that related to agriculture in the land of Israel. For instance,